So again, happy Friday. I can't believe it's October already. This year has just flown by. Super excited today to have Stefanie Krievins with us. Stefanie presented at our member conference, July? Was that, or is it June? It was the end of June.
Yes,
So
it was there.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, it was the summer.
yes.
It was over the summer.
So it was summer, yeah. So
Yeah.
Stephanie did a wonderful job presenting to our members at our conference this year, and we thought we've just got to do this again. And in a more exciting announcement, we developed a pretty cool program with Stephanie in her organization called the Change Architects. I'll talk a little bit about that now, and then we'll say a little bit more in the end. But so I hear around the table across many of the chapters that even as seasoned executives, change is tough. As the integrator in the organization, most large-scale change initiatives fall to the COOs, uh, and we know that people don't particularly love change, whether it's coming off of a merger or an acquisition, and we've had some presenters talk about that, or it's a transformation of some kind. It's difficult. And oftentimes we get stuck sometimes at the very beginning, and that's just overcoming the resistance. And so, along with Stefanie's expertise, we've created a cool program. It's a cohort based program developed specifically for members of the COO Forum. I think we're going to call it Resistance is Futile. I think that's like the proper name, like Resistance is Futile. It's a 6-month cohort, small group cohort, and you join the cohort with a change initiative that you want to work through Stefanie's program, and along with the monthly meeting with the cohort and working through your change initiative, kind of through a step-by-step process. You also get Stefanie's time each month, kind of as a change coach. We're going to talk more about that, and I'll let Stefanie share more about that as well. But those of you that know Stefanie, those of you there at the conference, and what you're about to see is Stefanie's got a ton of energy, and oftentimes we just need that extra spark of energy, new insights, some frameworks that we haven't thought of to overcome the challenges of change initiatives. I personally been doing change for 30 plus years. I think as soon as you're a leader, you're automatically christened with being a change expert, even though you don't learn it anywhere, and you learn it by trial and error. You read some books, maybe take some classes, but with a change of dynamics in a workplace, you've got to continue to build your skill sets around it. And that's why we're excited to have Stefanie develop this program for us. So that's all I'll say about it now. We'll share a little more afterwards. And then also following up on this call today, you're going to get a recap of today's call plus recording, and you'll get a registration link if you're interested in a little more details as well. So are we ready to roll?
Ready.
Fiona, are we ready? All right, Stefanie. Excited again to have Stefanie Krievins. Stefanie, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself just to kind of get us going, what you do, and then jump into it?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for having me, Chuck and Fiona. So we focus on at the Change Architects. Well, you'll hear it said a couple of different ways, but I think bottom line for me is we turn leaders into change makers. I started out as an executive coach working with a lot of small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses. And as an executive coach, it's kind of assumed that you're in the leadership world. And the more I started working with my clients who are C-suite executives, it became clear to me that I think what we need more of in professional development, personal development, is how do we drive change with other people, which is change management, right? And it's yes, there are skills that overlap with leadership, but there's a whole distinct bucket of change maker skills that I love to bring to executives from companies across the country to help you all drive change. We put a lot of pressure on leadership methodology. And when I dug into change management methodology, I was like, there's so many great frameworks here that are missing from the everyday leadership conversation. So that's why I do what I do, is because humans are squirrely, right? When it comes to change, I work with a lot of folks in IT, and in IT, they think if we could just craft a flow chart for this, then people will change. Or if we just have our project management person on it with the tasks and the deadlines, then people will do their part. And you all know that is not how it works, right? Like, our employees have buy-in and ownership, and they get stuck, and we experience resistance. And there are ways around it. So, in our work culture, we love to say change is hard and nobody likes change. Those actually aren't statistically categorically true. A lot of top level leaders love change, and they love to drive change. And so they don't think change is hard. It's the disconnect in those perspectives that make change hard, that makes resistance build up. And so, again, it just goes to skills. Like, let me share with you these frameworks to drive change, because they work with squirrely human beings. And I'll show you the fundamental tool here in a minute that describes all of that, which you may have seen before, but I love to share it with folks. Um, in terms of like where I'm at, I live in Indianapolis. That's how I got connected to Josh and then Chuck. And, it's all a series of change of events. And why I was blessed to be at your conference this summer too, when they hosted it as part of Industry Week here in Indianapolis. So, all happy series of events that brought us together this year. All right. So, you guys ready to see the content? We can talk about change and AI and communication frameworks. Okay. All right. Hold please for a production break. Let's see here. Okay. I am going to actually leverage ChatGPT today. Whichever AI tool is yours of choice, feel free to use it. ChatGPT is, as you know, kind of easy to use and easy to access. We're a Google shop, so I'm more likely in my work to use Google Gemini, but they're all very similar at this point. All right, so let's talk about how to leverage AI to improve your communications. So, I want to first hear from you all what is working, what is not working when it comes to communication and change right now in 2024. I have a list of ideas of why you're experiencing challenges as an operations leader, and then I'm going to ask you the same question. But these are things that I hear, and I want to validate those with you today. I'm going to share with you a new communications formula to use for any major change initiative. Something that has, at least a quarter's timeline to it. This isn't for small changes like, you know, let me think of an example. I was gonna say this isn't for small changes like turning on MFA, but that is a big transformation. That is a big change initiative in our organizations to get your 30 people, 100 people, 300 people using MFA and it not stopping them from accessing their technology. So this isn't for your small initiatives like hey, we've got this minor process update. And so we need you to start entering data into your CRM in this kind of way for, a certain field. These are for things that take at least 90 days to implement. I think that's probably a good measure here. And then I'm going to have some copy and paste prompts that you can use for AI next time you go to unroll a big initiative. And then we'll talk more about that change cohort. So that if you're interested, if this resonates with you, if you have a big change initiative coming in 2025, where you're like, Stefanie, I tried to do change in the way that I knew how, last year or sometime earlier this year, and I can't have it go as wonky as it did then. I'm going to sign up for this cohort. We'll give you the details to get you registered because we're going to close registration on October 24th, so we can get started in November to support you in being a rock star as a change maker in 2025. Which I'm still getting used to talking about 2025. I don't know about you. Again, a little bit about me, the change architects. Like I said, we turn leaders into change makers. Folks have the leadership title, you have positional authority, you have influential authority. Those are fantastic. Those are needed in order to drive change. We also bring a whole other bucket of frameworks, both for individual, organizational, and transformational change that happens in our organizations. 3 different types of change, 3 different buckets of frameworks that you need, or 3 different buckets of tools that you need to drive change at each of those levels. We do a lot of this through learning and development. We do communication planning. We do change management frameworks. A lot of folks know ADKAR and think that that's kind of the end all be all of change management. It's a good one. It's just the most known. It doesn't mean it's always the most helpful for your specific change initiative. It's just the most popular. It's kind of like saying we use Salesforce as our CRM because everyone uses Salesforce as their CRM. It can be very helpful, but not always the right fit or the best fit for what you have going on. So we bring multiple change management frameworks through consulting to help you choose the best one, given what you have going on. And really, like, our claim to fame is we don't make change management another program that you have to run. We integrate it into how the work is done, because as leaders, you don't need another thing, another program, another checklist. You need different frameworks for doing existing work. That is just how I see the world. And you need frameworks for connecting the dots between program management, communication, project management, financial management, leadership. I help our companies connect all the dots between that, so you don't have misalignment, disintegration in your organization that pulls people into competing commitments. So that's how we think about change management. It needs to be integrated into everything you do, and it's not a separate program, and it connects the dots between your different initiatives. Whoops, got a little hot there. All right, so here's the first conversation. You can come off of mute. You can use chat. I'm an extrovert's extrovert, so I love to have a good conversation. So however you want to share, feel free to do that. But what's interesting to me, and this has been the case, I've been in learning and development since 2010. And number one problem within teams and organization is communication. Except now in 2024, we have endless number of communication and collaboration tools at our disposal. I asked ChatGPT, how many communication and collaboration SaaS platforms exist? And I asked it in 3 different ways to see if I could get an actual number. And every time the answer was there's too many to count. I was like, okay, so clearly technology isn't solving our communication challenges. So for you all, what is your perspective? Why does communication remain a top challenge in 2024?
Remote work.
Multi-generational workforce.
Yes, that too.
Yep.
Mhm.
As leaders, we're usually so steeped in whatever we're trying to communicate. We've thought and overthought and turn it around our head so many times. And I think we under communicate to everyone else because we don't remember they don't have the context that we do.
Yes. Thank you for your transparency, Diana. Yes. Guilty of it
myself, but yes.
People have a preference for emails, but then nobody reads their emails because we're all overwhelmed with emails, and you can't always get the nuances across in an email. So
Nope.
People think that they're over communicating, but they're really not. So we were just talking about this yesterday, to where the receiver of their information, when they say stop too much, then you've hit the right amount. But the people giving them information just are like, oh no, I'm over communicating. No, you're really not.
Yep.
I'll just mention something kind of related to Diana, is that I think about the COO Forum 24/7. I go to bed thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. I dream about it. Raise your hand if you think about the COO Forum 24/7. Like, no. So I think oftentimes I'm thinking about it from a context that, I know so much because I'm thinking about it so often that what I communicate might not be the right fit for those that aren't thinking about it entirely.
Yep. just looking at the chat here, Aaron says, then there's change management associated with writing everything down. Some remote first companies grew up with that, but many of us did not. Aaron, just to clarify, are you thinking of like the agile framework of make all work visible? Tell me more about.
Yeah, in general, yes. I mean, I've been to a couple of conferences where we talk about this topic, and it's very clear that companies, like I'm thinking specifically at GitHub, that have they kind of grew up 100% remote, and like in their entire company culture, literally everything gets documented or written down with mechanisms for making sure people can ask questions. And then the people that are there also know that they go read, right? But that's not true of every company, right? There's a lot of culture that's embedded in our normal companies. Like I find out about stuff because I go to meetings, right? Or I hear it from my coworker, or I glanced at the email, and these cultures are very different. You have to be like extremely precise about everything. It's great. It's just not all companies grew up like that.
Yeah, yep. It's called a high documentation culture. Very, very effective for certain segments. And I would say probably more segments than not. And that's also a very introverted culture, right? Like if you think about what it takes to always have all information self-service, I'll be honest, sometimes I ask a colleague something because I'm an extrovert. I'm just like, yeah, let's hop on a Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Andrew says people have become very lazy and complacent. So just to I'm going to put a more positive perspective on that, Andrew. I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with you. There's also high information overload. You know, we have information coming at us 24/7. We have these devices that we're addicted to, and we confuse consumption with insight and knowledge. And so these things are not doing us any service when it comes to being productive on major initiatives. The same is true with our Slack messages. The same is true with email, right? Like the very notion that we can communicate means that we're overdoing it in the wrong areas.
What I mean by that is when people face the situation like that they have or have not read the documents, and or they are or are not in a position of ignoring or reading the Slack, that when we've got, my experience is people have got to a point where if I don't need to ask the question because somebody else will have the answer, and or it, like as was said now, will be documented, and people revert to using the electronic world as a stage separator of actually getting human with one another, and where people are either afraid of something or not leaning into something. This virtual thing has made us complacent and lazy about getting out there and actually asking the tough discussions and getting human with one another.
Oh, agree with that 110%. Yes. Okay, good stuff. So for the rest of the presentation, based on what I have to share with you today, here's the thesis for this conversation. And it is a conversation. Feel free to use chat, come off of mute and say, hey, Steph, I've got a question. You know, we can totally just dance with this material as we're together until noon Eastern here, so about another hour or so. Yes, so many disparate communication options and preferences. Absolutely. You've got generational preferences, you've got personality preferences, you've got accessibility issues at play sometimes, you've got competing commitments with values and stage of careers. I mean, the list of reasons for why communication breaks down makes it a miracle that communication happens at all sometimes. I'll tell you a good story just because I love to tell this story. When it comes to communication preferences and conflict, so my husband and I are the complete opposite when it comes to communication. Chances are you have the same dynamic with your staff. Like we tend to do that as human beings. And so I'm very direct and I'm very action oriented in virtually everything that I do. in case that's not abundantly clear. My husband is a peacemaker. He's very empathetic. He is go with the flow. For me, I'm like, I create the flow. Let's roll, y'all. Like, let's go. Part of why I'm on change management too. But we one time had somebody come over and I needed to get my lawn graded because it was so rocky and it was like getting hard to mow and all these things. And I was searching for someone to help us grade the lawn because at the time I was like, oh, I can find somebody to help us. That'll be more efficient. I don't know how to do this. I literally have a black thumb when it comes to landscaping. I don't do that stuff. And so I'm pretty terrible at it. So I found somebody and he comes over and we're in the front yard. He had been there about 1 minute and my husband comes out the front door to hear him. And all he hears is this guy go, no, we don't grade yards. And he's like, we don't do that work. And all I hear is my husband turn around and the front door slam. And I was like, well, that was weird. And so this guy and I kind of finish up and he's like, hey, this is the type of landscaping we do if you'd like some help. And I was like, great, thanks, bud. And he was gone in like 10 minutes. So I go into my husband and I was like, why didn't you come out and say hi? Like, why didn't you come out and talk to us? He goes, that guy was a jerk. He just said, we don't do this work. I was like, yeah, exactly. Like he was super efficient. We didn't need to make nice. Like we got to the point. He doesn't do what we need. He told us what he did do. I don't want to buy that. Have a great day. Bye. And he goes, yeah, that was he didn't use the word jerk. I think he probably used the D word. I was like, okay, like I thought it was great. That's what happens in our workplace all the time, right? I'm like, why do you send me an email with 72 words? Like I want an email with 7 words. And we got our colleagues who are like, I need you to ask how I am in every single email to be nice. This is what happens in change in communication. So I always like to tell that story because my husband's such a nice guy and he puts up with me and my shenanigans quite on the regular. But as we talk about communication frameworks, as we talk about change management and how we can leverage AI with it, my premise here is you probably don't need more communication. That is not the answer to this. I'm not going to ask you to do more for more sake. I am going to ask you to do more on what is important and on the focus work, which hopefully will cut down on the noise on the other stuff that's not needed. I'm actually doing another workshop this afternoon at 1 o'clock today on productivity theater. So if you'd like that, send me an email. You can get in at 1 o'clock. We're talking about productivity theater. I have no patience for busy work for busy work's sake. Because it detracts from the big important stuff here. See, Andrew and I were friends, I can tell. So again, it's not about more communication. It's about more focused communication, more focused, tailored to the segments inside of your organization. Doesn't matter if you have 30. It doesn't matter if you have 3, 30, 300, or 3,000. You can create segments. And because of AI, and you don't have to have interns, you don't have to craft all of this on your own. So the framework I'm going to share with you, you're going to be like, oh God, Stefanie, that's a lot. Nope. Now we have a digital free friend that is going to help us be more effective in our communication without adding a ton of work to our plate. And something that I never thought I would say before this summer, it's going to help us sound more empathetic to people who think differently than us. Because most leaders, where they get into trouble, they communicate from their communication preferences and styles, which means you're leaving out probably another 75% of the people you're trying to communicate with. By using AI, it can help you tailor communication to different personality styles, different ways of thinking that you may have not thought of your own, so you can sound more empathetic. Whether or not you are empathetic, only you know your intention. I can't speak to that. Only you know that, but it can make you sound more empathetic, which can get you much further in workplace communication. So first, let's talk about why does change feel hard? It feels hard because we allow resistance to stop us dead in our tracks inside of our organization. So this is the change curve. This is the emotional roller coaster that every single human being goes through. It's completely universal when presented with change. It's based off the Kubler-Ross grief curve. which I think it's hilarious that change is also in our brains a series of grief steps. It is psychologically, it is the same. And what happens is we all have different relationships to our speed or rate of change that we go through this curve on, depending on personality, how much autonomy we have in the change, and how much input or insight we were gifted into the process. The number one.
I have a question, Stephanie.
Yes, ma'am.
So are there like lines people, like the orange line, the person chooses to leave or stay engaged? Like what are the arrows?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is all from the individual's perspective. So each of us will go through this, each of your employees will go through this. And so what the arrows represent, and this is from one of my favorite thought leaders in this area, her name is Cy Wakeman. She talks a lot about change readiness, change capacity. So what these arrows represent is employees' relationship to the change and what we allow them to do or what they allow themselves to do with the change. So in an ideal scenario, you've got a big change initiative coming up, right? Like you're turning on MFA for your organization for security reasons and other things, right? Like it's actually non-negotiable that they participate, but you want more than their compliance. You want their engagement. You want them to say, I get it. I understand why we have to protect each other's personal information and the company's IP through these cybersecurity measures, right? In an ideal scenario, people will stay and engage. So that's that turquoise line here. They will manage themselves through the emotional roller coaster of change to get to the side of, I get it, I'm participating, I'm going to not begrudge multi-factor authentication every time I got to put my finger here or listen to my phone for the code, whatever it is. It's like, yes, we do it. And I do it because it's so important to the company, to my colleagues, to our clients. Staying engaged is the best case scenario. Now, second best case scenario is choosing to leave. Hey, like, this is just something I'm not willing to do. Like, this, it's great that the company is headed in this direction. It's, our leaders, it's their decision to make about the strategy of the organization. I just don't want to participate. I'm out. Giving people graceful exits to these big transformations, right? Like, let's say you're a company and you're going to start serving a new target audience in 2025, and you've asked a certain sales rep to begin selling to this group, right? Like we've been in small mid-market. Now we're going to try to get into the larger mid-market space for our customer base. And I need Stan as a sales guy to go and do it. Stan doesn't want to do it. And so he comes to you and says, you know what? Like, this just isn't my jam. This is not where I want to be at this stage of my career. This is not who I want to serve. This is what I love about my job. And if that's no longer can be my job, I'm going to go find another place to make a difference. Second best case scenario, because that person is gracefully choosing to leave, hopefully gracefully, without staying and resisting. So what happens in our organizations is we allow our resistors to stay, not adopt the change, create emotional noise and sideways energy and toxicity. And only when it gets super bad, where we're like, oh, we got to get them out. No, 90-day plan. Either choose to leave, choose to stay, or find a new place. Like, you don't get to stay and resist. Too many cultures allow their people to stay and resist. And you tank your own culture because of it. So that's what the lines represent. The stages, kind of those color stages, that's the stage of the change curve that, again, we all walk through. Almost all of us, even if it's for a split second, when we're presented with change, when we've made the decision to change, there's a piece of us that goes, oh God, this doesn't have to happen. Oh God. But depending on who you are, your level of autonomy with the decision, your relationship to change, your relationship to the work itself, depends on how long you stay there, and your skills to walk yourself back over to the embedded change, which is like, this is here to stay. We're doing it. We're working it. We're maximizing it. So what questions do you guys have about the change curve? bottom line for me is if you're thinking of your questions, like this is like when you're presented with that emotional roller coaster from your organization, this is what is happening. And instead of people like, I always like to think of it like best case scenario is like, let's get them on the slide down so we can go, whee, and slide back up. It doesn't have to be, oh God, we're going into the valley of despair, which is confusion. So that's what I hope for you all as we get some more, we're going through change because of these frameworks versus, oh crap, this sucks. Yes, Aaron, I see your hand raised. What is up?
Yeah, so I identified a lot with the, you know, trying to keep people in and kind of dragging them along. That's the right word. We're coaching them along to try to get with the program. Right?
Yep.
So like that's actually like one of my double-edged sword superpowers that I love working with people to try to get them through their challenges. But I also run into a situation where like no amount of coaching is going to get this person to buy in for whatever reason, right? And how and when, you know, what should we be looking for earlier on in the curve to identify those folks that may not be able to get coached through the process?
Yeah. So, one, I love that you have that skill set. I agree completely. It's the coaching that will help them move through. So, first and foremost, what to be looking for is your mindset as a leader. Are you allowing them? Are you making sure that they're taking responsibility for their changed behavior? A lot of leaders accidentally fall into this mindset of if I do more, if I give them more, if I give them all the information they need, if I change their job just enough, if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, then they'll get themselves on board. As leaders, I oftentimes have to coach them to detach yourself from their changed behavior as quick as possible. So I think that's the first step is you've got to check yourself and your mindset that you are making sure that they know and you know that it's their responsibility to engage and motivate themselves in the change. A lot of leaders at your level, I just see both sides, right? Like you've learned that detachment, but a lot of leaders still haven't. So first step is making sure you're detached from them changing their behavior because it's their responsibility. Second is, again, I believe in working in these 90-day sections for engagement. So you need to see significant progress in 90 days. So if you're still experiencing, I'm going to say within, depends on how big the initiative is, in the first 4 to 6 weeks, crying, tons of frustration, a lack of engagement in, let's say, like the process itself, or any kind of change behavior, or accessing the technology, like even small steps are big wins within the first 30 days. If you're not seeing that, work that 90-day plan to say, hey, I'm not seeing your engagement in this. Within 90 days, this is what success looks like. And if you're not here, we need to talk about you finding another place to make your difference. And I'm not trying to be, what's the word? Like too catastrophic from the beginning, but what resistors do to our culture is so toxic and so heavy and so detrimental to the change management. It deserves that kind of 90-day kind of sense of urgency. So if you're still seeing frustration, like lack of even small steps, because they're not taking agency, to me, those are signs. If folks are, you know that they're going to the trainings, you know that they're reading the emails. If they're not doing those things, right, like that's big red flag, like that's not an option to stay and not engage. But if they're doing it and they're stuck in confusion land, like I'm not understanding, like and they're not asking questions, they're not being curious about what's happening, that's another sign too.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was going to also add, I've run into a lot of passive aggressiveness in these situations, right? Where they'll say all the right things, right? But the moment that they're not talking to you, you're just sensing that there's they're not with the program and they're they're complaining or they're talking about it, like not even in front of you, right? Like they're doing it like on the side, right? So,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? This is my favorite tool on the planet. It's so helpful. So helpful. All right. So I want to summarize what I believe you all might experience as it relates to change and communication. And so I want to fact check these with you, if you will, validate them. I think several of these we've talked about. I love to make sure we're starting from the same page and kind of have the same understanding. Information overload, right? We have so much information coming to us all of the time. Folks are having a hard time discerning what is helpful, what is not, what is useful, what is not, what is priority now, what is priority later. We've got resource constraints. You know, every organization has limits to their budget, has limits to the number of people that they can hire. Like we feel those constraints frequently. And instead of in organizations that have a hard time changing, here's what I hear. Well, we can't do that because we don't have enough people. We can't do that because we don't have the right technology. We can't. And for folks that are really great at changing, they know how to flip that into what can we do with what we have. There's nothing wrong with resource constraints. If anything, it should make you more creative versus limited. There's a lack of qualitative and quantitative data-driven insights. I think everyone feels like they don't have the right data at the right time in the right way to make the best decisions. And I was actually listening to a marketing podcast where this person, her job is marketing data analytics. And she goes, let's start this conversation with no one ever feels like they have the right info or enough info. The point is you make a decision to move forward with the info you do have. And this is a woman that has access to all the data for a large company that she runs the marketing for and can break things down into 1,000 different ways. And she goes, we never feel like we have enough. And I was like, oh, it's not just me then? Okay, great. And it's not just you. We never have all the right info, all the best info at the right time to feel like we can make a decision. That's not the point. The point is do what you can with what you have, make a decision with the info that you do have. I think it's hard to tailor messages to specific audiences, right? As an operations executive, you know, again, 330, 300, 3,000, you're like, man, I'm one person. Like I can only do so much. And so part of that is we don't have processes for how info gets cascaded through our middle management, because most organizations, your mid-level management stops shit dead in its tracks. And it's a skill set issue and it's an accountability issue. So that is fixable. We fix that. But if you feel that you're like, man, info just gets stuck somewhere in my organization, again, you're not alone, but that's where you can create better communication practices inside your organization and accountability practices too, which is a conversation for another day. But now with AI, you have the ability to quickly tailor your information to people who think differently than you, other divisions, other levels, you know, other stakeholders, internal and external, because of AI. So we can't use a lack of time for tailoring messages as an excuse any longer. Weakened relationships and engagements, you know, what Andrew was pointing out earlier, this whole virtual world, we sometimes think that makes the world go round, and it doesn't. There's no substitute for physical human interaction. Yes, Zoom meetings are fine. Yes, they serve a purpose. Yes, they can get us so far. But, you know, we've got some weakened relationships and engagement inside of our organization that is hindering our change initiatives. And then also some organizations I work with, a lot of people feel like the goalposts are always moving. So if you don't know what success is, you don't know how to get there, you don't know when you're there, that's very defeating for human beings. And it's very perplexing and creates a lot of noise. I say that because especially if you're an executive responsible for driving innovation, innovation itself can feel like the goalposts are always moving, even though as a leader, you're just going, no, we're just up leveling. You know, we've reached this, now we're going to the next phase. That is not how your people perceive it. We'll stop there. What else would you add?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you repeat one more time on the resource constraint? Because you said something, I didn't manage to capture it all, that, because I think this is a major problem I have. People that are good at change, you were saying that the people that are resistant are always kind of saying, I don't have enough resources, versus the people that are better at it, flip it. Because I think that's one of my people on my executive team. It's like you bring something up and it's just that immediate answer is, well, you took resources away from me. I'm like, can you stop talking about the resources that we made a decision 2 years ago not to let go? He still brings them up. It's so frustrating. So is it the goal is to get, if the people are better when they it's not the resource constraint, it's the what can I do? You said something around that.
Yeah. And so organizations that are good at change see constraints as opportunities. And so the powerful question becomes, what can we do with what we have? What does this make possible? And so those are just coaching questions that you can ask yourself and others, because you're going to get I don't have time. Well, you don't understand. We eliminated 5 positions, so we can't do that, right? And it comes with like this kind of indignation around, well, we just can't do anything. And you're like, oh boy, your budget's still $5 million. Like, what are you doing over there? Right? And so the more powerful questions are around creativity. What does this make possible? And go back to the pandemic, right? Like everyone, the pandemic, worst case scenario, and oh my God, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, blah, 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 blah. And look at the possibilities that came out of the pandemic. That's the flip in perspective that brings creativity, innovation, growth, challenge, change. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a comment. Sometimes I think when it comes to either communicating or deciding to make change, we look at the individual a little bit too much to make the decision. How long have they been here? Are they loyal to us? Oh, they're going to leave. We won't be able to function. But I think we should just focus on the end game, like what our goal is. Consider the individual, but don't change because of the impact to some certain individuals, like favoritism. I think that's what stalls us sometimes as well.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot. And I think that empathy is wonderful and to be celebrated, right? Like this person's been with us for 20 years and we know the headache or the consternation or the frustration that it's going to create for that person. And again, that empathy is beautiful to be celebrated. And you as a top level executive, your other executives, you're in a position to make strategic decisions for the business that are better for the business to survive in the long run than to protect this person's emotional maturity, self-awareness, frustration levels. See, isn't this fun?
Stefanie, I think you made a really good point about doing what you can do with what you have. And so I look at change management, as I suspect everybody on this phone has made a good career path out of being change agents. And being one myself, I look at change management as no different than any other negotiation I've ever had to go through, whether I'm negotiating a new car or negotiating the bedtime with my stubborn child or negotiating a salary or a big deal with a client. It's the art of taking those rebuttals and resistance to, no, I don't want to go to bed, or no, I want you to pay the highest price for this car, or no, I want you to give me the lowest price for the services you're trying to sell me. It's, not arguing with their rebuttals, but asking open-ended questions of, okay, so with the money that you're proposing to give me, how do you suggest I do and cover this entire scope? Because this scope requires us to do XYZ, and you want it for this price. So either we reduce the scope of services and we talk about priority, or we talk about increasing, the level of resources that we want to invest in this scope, because it's all important. And you put it back on them. You challenge their rebuttals with logic. You don't argue. Okay, so if you don't want to go to bed at 9, then if you want to stay up till 10, then how are you going to wake up at 6? Because you have to get ready, you have to take a bath, you have to eat your breakfast, and your bus comes at 6:45. How are we going to do all of that? Right? Now, obviously, you can't rationalize with a toddler, but you get my point, is that you have to combat those rebuttals, because that's all it is. Anytime somebody's resisting change, they're just saying no to the offer that you're trying to negotiate, and bringing back those open-ended questions, and just not saying no, but challenging their logic. You're very passively, aggressively saying no, but you're making them think why you're saying no. And when you make them negotiate against themselves is when you win. The goal is not to get them to a yes, but to get them to, oh yeah, that's right. I see your point.
An insight. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with, those are wonderful tactics. The only thing I'm gonna disagree with is of your use of passive aggressive. I don't think so at all. Like, you are using influence and guiding skills to create something that I'm gonna assume you're coming at this from a perspective of I get to win and you get to win too.
Absolutely. It is a win-win, right? It's using their own rebuttals and having their own logic to think their way through a win-win solution. So, okay, so what can you do with the resources we have? So I got it. You need 60 engineers. You only got 40. We can only afford 45. What can we do with 45? Again, maybe we stop that R&D project that we're working on. Maybe put that on pause. How important is it? What's the pros and cons? Where do we want to spend and allocate? Again, it's just about priorities and allocation of resources.
Yes. Good stuff. All right. So let's get into this communication framework, and kind of with what we've queued up so far, to break down the thesis just a little bit more. Here's what I would encourage you to think about as an operations executive, as a COO. The most effective change agents, don't think of them as a fill in the blank leader, right? Like I lead sales, I lead the revenue, I lead operations. Think like a marketer. And luckily, with employee communication tools, you can think more like a marketer than ever. But you've got to kind of put that hat on when you think about using communications to drive behavior change. Second, frequency and repetition are the key to behavior change, and behavior creates new results. And so oftentimes a lot of our communication, it's too episodic. There's only like 1 or 2 versions of the message, and we don't focus on the behavior change that's needed. It's more announcement style, like, hey, this is happening. And it's, hey, this is happening. Here's your role in it. Here's what you have to do next. So there's more thorough communication there. But if you're thinking like a marketer, if you want to get people to change their behavior, frequency and repetition are the keys. And what I mean by that is, and very simply articulated, I did this at the workshop, and I should have my bag over here, but I have this beautiful book bag suitcase thing that I love, that is like my office thing. I put my laptop on it and I carry around, and it's convertible. It goes from like a messenger bag to like a cool little handle bag to a backpack. You guys know why I have that one and not all the other backpacks that are like that out there? It's because I saw their Facebook ad more frequently. I saw it more frequently, and I saw it more often. So frequency and repetition are the key to behavior change. That is like fundamental marketing 101. The more frequently you can get something in front of folks, the more likely they are to change their behavior. Effective leaders curate and explain, curate and explain, curate and explain. And what I mean by that is your people, this is the number one thing I hear inside of cultures. I don't understand why. I don't understand why. As leaders, if you are to provide way more context and curate the information to hold people's focus on the right thing at the right time, you will be exponentially more successful. There, because of information overload, we're all struggling to prioritize. And so I do believe it is a leader's job to curate priorities, to say, this is 1, 2, and 3 right now. This is 1, 2, and 3, and you're gonna have to say it 47 more times. This is 1, 2, and 3. Here's why this is so important. Actually, not 47, it's 7 by 7 by 7. I'll break that down for you in a second. Also, again, because these are some common things I see in cultures, your mid-level managers must be accountable for cascading communication clearly and accurately in a way that unifies the business. Too many executives, all of your C-suite, hold too much responsibility and accountability for getting information from the very top to the very bottom. Nope. Your mid-level managers, they need to be accountable for cascading clear information. And with technology, we can now see that accountability go downstream. And so, again, this is why why a communication cadence or process is super important for change management. I did this with a client where we detailed out 5 different kind of levels of communications, right? Like this is a super high urgency, high importance, like DEFCON 1 situation. I don't know my DEFCON, so apologies, right? Like the most serious of situations. Here's how information gets cascaded. Here's who's responsible for what. Here's how fast it moves. 2, hey y'all, this is a multi-year initiative. This is how this gets communicated. This is how slow it moves because it's different. That would be, you know, a level 5 out of 5 communication. So level 1 is most urgent, most important. Something's literally or figuratively on fire. Level 5 is a long range initiative. You need articulated processes for how that gets unstuck from your mid-level management. I wish it were different, but that's usually what I experience. So as an executive, put that cap on for me. I want to share with you the framework, the communication framework that is the most effective for change management initiatives. So for organizational change, for something that you need almost all individuals to change their behavior, and for huge, large transformation initiatives, like you're getting a new ERP in order to completely redesign your customer experience. So I see a question here. How do you determine if communication is being properly cascaded across multiple levels, specifically using technology? Yeah, so couple of different ways. These are real simple ones, and this would just take some more kind of consulting on my side to create very clear answers. But very simply, what you can do is make sure that you're sending out employee communications using some kind of newsletter distribution app versus just plain old email, because then you can track open rates, read rates, click-through rates, just like a marketer would. So I think that's a very simple way to do it. You want to build in a call to action, and it could just be clicking on a certain link, but build in a call to action in every single communication and track whether or not people are doing that call to action. Now, this is going to seem super laborious, but then let's say you come back a week later, run the metrics and see who hasn't opened it, who hasn't clicked through it. You send that to their manager and say, manager, this action hasn't been taken. I need you to connect with that employee and report back to me either what questions they have or what stopped them or what's happening. I need you to validate that they have the information and that they took action, and report back to me by Wednesday of next week. So that's super duper simple, right? And it might seem like a weird, like checks and balance, like, man, that's a little heavy-handed, Stefanie. You won't have to do that forever, but you do have to train accountability for communications. Aaron, yes.
Yeah, on the follow-up on that. So as you were talking about it, I'm literally envisioning like an acquisition funnel where we got all the employees in like the top, right? And then like we send a message, like, did they open it? But the question I had, by the way, I really like the way of thinking, is when we do that, so when I put my marketer hat on, there's like objective metrics that I can track, like conversions, right? Like, did people actually do what they were supposed to do? So my question as a follow-up is, sure, I can determine, are people reading it and all that jazz, right? But how do we know that they converted? You know, not at a bigger scale, like what are the signals that we could track to go, yeah, they read it, but they're actually internalizing it, using it, changing their behavior? Like, what are the sorts of things that you would be thinking of to track like that?
Yeah, and this is where it's super dependent on what the initiative is, right? And that's why it's important for communication to focus on what, why, how, when, what's next for you. Very few communications should just be like an FYI, like this is for your information. Like I would put that almost like I don't understand the point of that. If there's nothing for them to do, why would they need to know about it? And so let me ask you this. What's an initiative that's top of mind for you? So I want to use
Well,
that.
I mean, I was just thinking, and now that we're all talking about AI, right? Like, so if we go like, hey, we want to see people leveraging AI to try to like get efficiencies and the 80% of the work that is not generating the most strategic value, right? So, I mean, I guess I could audit somehow, like, are they actually using ChatGPT or, whatever that is, but like the use of the technology in a way that is aligned with the objectives that we laid out. So that would be one example, right?
Yeah, and that's great. So a couple different things you could do is, and bear with me if this sounds too simple, but we can chat offline for better example or more deep examples. One of the things you could do is say, when you submit this report, when you submit this whatever, no, let me back up. At the top of every month, you can hold let's say a staff all hands and say, this month, the priority is to focus on finding ways to use AI to reduce our workload, that 80% that, just keeps the lights on, keeps things humming. So at the end of the month, we're going to reconvene and you are to bring 5 ideas for pieces of your work that you will use ChatGPT for. And of course, you want some more governance around it to protect your company's IP. This is the portal we use. This is how we use ChatGPT. There's a lot of work to be done in that area. But all right, so November 1, hey guys, here's the announcement. You're going to send out some weekly reminders, weekly suggestions of how leaders are using AI to automate their work. Then you're going to reconvene on October 31st. Everyone's going to have, November 30th. November 30th, you're going to have everybody bring their 5 different ideas and announce them to the group, right? Everyone stands up and says, here are my 5 ideas. Then you're going to do some breakout groups to call that down to 2. And then those get captured in a plan. Then starting on January 1, 2025, you will create some kind of project management board or Kanban board for how those are being implemented. When people turn in their work, you will say, I need, please share the AI prompt that you use to produce this and articulate what you added of your own perspective. So it kind of sounds like homework, but it just forces people to articulate, remember to change their behavior and articulate how they did.
Okay, yeah. Got it. Yeah. And so I can also see that this is going to be highly dependent on what it is that we're asking them to do, right? Whether it's ChatGPT or some totally different initiative. But yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. So let's talk about the framework and this 7x7x7 framework plus AI can create change. And 7x7x7 is a proven change management communication framework. It's inspired by John Cotter's 8 steps. And embedded in one of the steps is what he calls the 7x7, because I'm me and I wanted to update it for the 21st century and information overload. I added 7. So here's a communications framework to use for your larger initiatives that take longer than 90 days. 7 messages. This is how you frame the work in order to influence change. All a message is like a certain perspective on the project, the problem you're solving for, the ERP implementation, the new focus on documenting your processes and getting them into one learning management software, whatever it is, changing how you communicate it will help different personality styles and generations connect to it in different ways. So messages can simply be, what are the results that we're trying to get with this project? What's the process we're going to use? What individuals are affected? What teams are affected? Why is this so important? How does this impact us in the short term and the long term? Those are 7 right there. When it comes to intergenerational communication, what I recommend is that you have one place with all of the information, you know, a wiki of some sort or one document, whatever works for your technology, because there are personalities and there are mostly the older generations that want stuff in a very thorough and all in one place. And folks kind of need a go-to resource, a go-to Bible, right, for this project. I think that makes sense. Then you break it down into smaller messages and shoot that out on your different channels, which is simply where your messages get delivered. Email, chances are we're over relying on email as a channel. Your company IMs, where things need to be super short and link to something else, right? Or have a very specific call to action. One-on-one meetings, staff meetings, all hands meetings, the digital billboard in the break room or the entryway or whatever. Those are all just channels for delivering of messages. You create a plan and you repeat your messages on your channels 7 times. Repetition, frequency, customization. I will stop there. What questions do you have about this framework? And if one of your questions is, do I really have to do all of this? Yes. Because I would bet my life savings that you are spending the time that it would take to create a communications plan on the front end. You're spending at least 3 times that long trying to get people engaged and on board after the initiative has already gone forward, after you've already missed some deadlines, after you've already missed some goals. You're spending that time. And so I say, be more proactive, be more efficient by planning more thorough, repeated communication on the front end. See why I have no friends? This is what I tell people to do. 7 by 7 and 7 by 7. Come on now. But no, it's actually very, very effective. Disaster control. Absolutely. Chuck, I did disaster recovery. This is part of what it is related to. Yeah, it works. So the AI piece, you can use AI first take on data analysis, or also like summarizing project plans and creating project plans. The example I have for you is a job description project where everyone's getting an updated job description. You can use AI to analyze your job descriptions, create a project plan for your job description project before we even get to the communication piece of it. Streamline effective communication workflows with stakeholders. Personalize and create targeted messages for different groups. This again, where AI can help you sound empathetic to other perspectives. One of the versions of the prompts that I created to prepare us for today, when I said, tailor these messages versus the emails that I'll show you in a second to different personality styles. I mean, it came up with perspectives that I would never think of. Every organization, you have multiple personalities at play and they all want something different, as you know, and it was such a great reminder of, oh, wow, like my natural communication style does not connect to that type of person or that type of person. It only connects to these 2 types of people. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of your humanness, your humanity. But as an executive leader, you've got to find ways to get your message to land across the organization. And then also using AI, it creates capacity. Because it's creating like the first 60, 70%, that bulk of the work. It's taking you from a blank page to something to work with. And I don't know about you, but starting with that blank page is like the bane of my existence. I have an hour to write something, I probably got a blank page for like the first 35 minutes. And I'm like, ooh, and you're deleting and you're editing and you're cutting, you know, and then all of a sudden it starts flowing. Let's just use AI to do that. Or else using AI as your thought partner. Yes, love that. I don't think this needs to be said in this group, but AI obviously doesn't create our final product, but it does help us use less of our most valuable resource, which is time, to never start from that blank sheet of paper again. And frankly, I just love to use my baby as an example because I love to share my baby with the world. His name is Lincoln. He's the most perfect critter in the whole world. This is him when he was about 2 months old. He's adopted from Florida last December. He's 9 months now. I love him so much. And when I asked AI, what is my baby going to look like in 10 years? This is what I came up with, which apparently is like Dick Cheney's mother, Dick Cheney himself. I don't know, but someone was like, we didn't know you were Dick Cheney's mom. I was like, that's what it looks like, Dick Cheney. But AI says, this is what my beautiful baby's going to look like, this weird hobbit creature in 10 years. So that's my caveat of not over relying on AI, because this is how it thinks currently. Now, maybe in another 10 years, it'll be more accurate. But right now, it's weird. It's doing some weird things. It's hallucinating, if you will, and turning my beautiful baby into like a weird version of Dick Cheney. So, you know, that's what I got. Let's talk about how to write that prompt. So if you've not dug into AI too much, and again, when I wrote this presentation over the summer, I was teaching myself about how to use prompts at the same time that I was teaching others. And actually a staff member of mine helped me do this, and she just broke it down into something super simple so that we could teach you, but it works. Like it's freaking amazing. It works. So when you get into your AI tool of choice, ChatGPT is kind of the catch-all term for now. What do you want it to do? So you start the prompt with a verb. So write, analyze, whatever. And you'll see, I'm going to run an example in ChatGPT here in a second. So start with the verb. What is it doing for you? How do you want it displayed? So you can tell it the output. So for example, we're going to use a table format or a matrix table and we'll tell it what the columns and the rows are. So you can be this specific, and there's several apps available to help you. And it depends on your subscription with ChatGPT to get the information out of ChatGPT and into an Office document or into a Google Drive document, you know, whatever those formats are, to make it even easier. The third, what tone are you aiming for? Professional, a little sassy, you know, executive level, energizing, inspirational. You tell it the tone that you're aiming for, and it gets very, very close. What content should it include? So be very specific in the prompt about what it's spitting back out for you. And in this case, we're going to tell it to do email content, like write these emails. So 4 steps. I think the sky's the limit in terms of how you know, your recipe or, you know, what you use in these 4 steps to create an output. And I have no doubt the better you get at writing prompts, the better you can get more information out. And so let's just run through a quick example for you. This is to create your communications plan using the 7x7x7 framework to get you 75% of the way there of your communications plan. So this is the prompt I'm going to put in a second. Write a communications plan in a matrix table. So that's the verb is write, the output is the matrix table with the following columns. So it's creating a schedule for us with the day, the time, the audience, who it's from, the email title, so the subject and the copy. So this way we can engage other people in this communication plan and not just put it all on you as the individual leader. You can include other roles. So then we tell it this is a 4-week email series detailing a job description project, and each audience needs 7 emails total. So 7 emails over 4 weeks for the audience. The different audiences are leadership, managers, and individual contributors. And then you'll see we're telling it the tone to use in the parentheses. Each week should build on the changes and rotate through the messaging topics of the why and the how, the results, the process, and the people involved, their actions we need from them, and then finally the deliverable. So I just went in and gave it the framing of the messages because those are the most important to me to get started on a project. So we're gonna do this in real time. And what's fascinating is every time I do this, it provides slightly different results. So I'm gonna bring up ChatGPT. Heather has to run. Thank you, Heather, for being here. So we're gonna put in this prompt and see what it creates in real time. This is the full prompt all at once. So you'll see week 1 emails to our audiences, who they're from, title, copy. Week 2 emails to our audiences. Week 3. And these are short and simple and super sweet, right? Like you might want to link to a project plan. You might want to link to more information. You will want to add a specific call to action, but this gets you started. Yep. Yes, the greeting does change because it's trying to create that tone for you. Yep. Y'all, I don't know about you, but this is at least 3 hours of work. Like if you were to craft it from scratch and we just took 30 seconds. I mean, writing the prompt probably take you 5 minutes, right? So just real quick to kind of highlight what you can use with AI to, again, build your frequency, build your repetition, build your thoroughness of communication. You can also have it write you an email as the COO summarizing the process for managers. So you want to take responsibility for communicating with mid-level managers. It will write it for you. Same with the Slack message, right? Like our Slack messages should be 2 sentences. Our email should be 5 sentences. It knows how to customize all of that. Google did just release what they're calling Notebook LM. If you've not yet had a chance to try it out, I've been playing with it with another group of mine this week. It's even better than ChatGPT. You can put in a project plan. It'll write you a blog post. It'll write you a Slack message, a communications plan. Because it's driven by Gemini. It's, I think, mostly for the workplace. It's just way more, it's really good. Yes, Errol. Sorry, is that how you say it, Errol?
Oh, it's RL.
RL, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. I have a just a general question. So I use ChatGPT to help me negotiate getting Juneteenth as an annual holiday and then December 24th as well. But when I was presenting it to the board, I just said I did research, but like, back in the day, we didn't want to plagiarize. So do we give credit to ChatGPT when we use it? Because since we know it's not our original points, I'm just struggling with that a little bit. Like when I'm presenting, do I present it as if it's mine, or do I say I use ChatGPT, or how do we navigate that?
Yeah, man, that's very Gen X of you. I love it. So this is my perspective on it. Anything you put into an AI model like this is your IP. It is your creativity. It is your work product. And so I don't believe that you need to credit AI for it, because the assumption is your prompts are your knowledge, and what it creates is yours, and you own it, like copyright, you own it. so you don't need to from
Okay.
a credit perspective.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Other folks might say otherwise, but that's my understanding.
I don't think they really have a lot of case law on this yet. I think we're all trying to figure it out. I mean, AI ethics is one of the hottest topics out there.
Yep, you're right. Aaron, yes, sir.
Yeah, I was reacting to this, and I it's just going to depend on the organization and like who are the leaders and who are the people asking. But like, I personally don't have, like, I wouldn't have a problem if someone would show up to me and say, I put this plan together leveraging ChatGPT. I formulated the prompts. I formulated the context for the AI. I mean, that's like valuable. That's kind of the work, right? Like the value that goes into the prompted into the model. However, talk to us a little bit about security, right? Because I think that's maybe in the back of the minds of some of the executives, like, hey, did you show it all of our internal documents in order to generate this, right? That sort of thing. So yeah.
Yes, and that's a great, Aaron, that's the point, and that's the point at play right now. So because I work with a bunch of IT executives, this is what I'm hearing about, and they'll use fancy words like governance and governance and governance, and it's, you can't put your company IP into these machines that aren't separated in some kind of way, because then your company IP is part of the ethos and it can be pulled into other places. So huge dilemmas there. And in part, that's not really an AI issue. That's an IP issue. That's like a confidentiality issue. Yes, it's getting played out in AI and it's new and it's weird, but that is like your employees wouldn't take your internal planning documents and like stick them up on a telephone pole for everybody to read. That's what they're doing when they put it into ChatGPT. So folks need some help there. Real quick, and then Kat, I'll come to you. But the other thing that I'm hearing too is the use of prompts from an ethical perspective, because chances are other people have put protected company info into ChatGPT. If you were to write prompts in a certain way, you could find that information. It doesn't make it right, doesn't make it ethical. It just means that it's there. So things that our employees need education on. Yes, Kat.
That's why I'm super excited about the Google Notebook LM, because I'm a Google house. And so it's sitting, so if anybody is using all the Google apps and docs, it's sitting over my information. So any of the, when I'm using it, I'm creating these notebooks and, policies and whatnot with my information. So we're starting to test it last week, and it's literally my mind is completely blown on what it does, because you're now we put our employee handbook in there and a bunch of the different policies and how to report harassment, and the prompt, and it puts notes back to my documents. And so it's answering like our salespeople, can you sell to Russia? No, it's reporting my export control policy, and it's referencing. But that's where I'm going to get around the concern of the IP, because it's sitting over, it's firewalled. It's sitting over and it's within my world. So that's why I'm super, if you're a Google house, definitely look into that one, because that's a massive game changer. And oh my gosh, thank you so much. I am catching up on the AI world. I feel like I am behind your prompt. My mind is blown. So I'm so late in playing, but the prompts that you did, like the communication stuff that you were just talking about, I'm trying to figure out, how do I get people to not return to office, but I got to know you're local, just show up a little bit more often, guys, please. So I'm like looking at this, I need a communication plan, exactly what I need to do. So I'm going to go play. So thank you.
Yay. I love it. Thank you.
I want to jump in real quick, and that was a great comment and question, Kat. And Scott, I thought I saw you come off mute. Did you want to have last word or last question?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that there's a tool called Perplexity, which actually will cite references and resources from the internet. So if you do need to reference things, you can have it. That tool will use AI and the web, and then you will get references if you're in academics or companies that need that.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right. So in tradition, when we have just a wonderful presenter that has knocked it out of the park. If you would, if you can, come off mute and let's just give a quick round of applause for Stefanie. Thank you so much, Stefanie. That was awesome. We appreciate you taking the time, and I thank all of our members that took the time out of their day to learn and to grow as an executive. And right there, if you want more change making tools, again, we're excited to launch our Resistance is Futile cohort, which will officially begin November. As a part of the follow-up to this call, you're going to see a registration link. There is a fee accompanied with this. I think to help, it's a heavily subsidized fee. I guess some of it will help prevent the little critter from looking like Dick Cheney in 10 years. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, if you've got a change initiative that you are working on and you want to walk that initiative through the cohort process with other executives around the table from the COO Forum with Stefanie's leadership, today was just a small snippet of what she can bring to that process, then please consider signing up. Registration is due by 10/24 so that we can count on the group. I think it's going to be a small group size in the 8 to 10 or so range. It'll meet monthly and run through April of 2025. Small investment of 2,000, so a number you just can't find anywhere else. But we're happy to bring that to the members of the COO Forum. So we're at 11:58. You're going to hear more from Stefanie. We'll have some follow-up emails. I think we're even producing a video, right, Stefanie?
Oh yeah, we are. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You'll get to see our video production efforts. But anyways, again, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Watch for follow-up emails, and I'm glad to see everyone.
Thank you.